Charlotte, North Carolina, a city that perfectly blends southern charm with big city energy. It's where skyscrapers share the skyline with old brick mills, NASCAR engines roar in the distance, and barbecue arguments could start a civil war. It's also home to something a little less talked about: ghosts that apparently never got the memo that rent prices have gone up. Charlotte might be booming, but some of its residents have been here for a very long time. And I mean like Civil War long. Before we dive into the haunted places, let's talk a little about Charlotte itself. Known as the Queen City, it was named after Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz. Yes, a real queen, not a drag performer. Back in the 1700s, Charlotte started as a small crossroads town built where two Native American trading paths met. Over time, it became a major financial hub, home to Bank of America and enough Wells Fargo buildings to make you double-check your credit score just walking downtown. But beneath all that success lies something a bit more unsettling. Because with all that history, the battles, the booming gold rush of the 1800s, the rise of the textile industry, comes a whole lot of stories. Some say Charlotte's ghosts are simply former residents who refuse to leave their beloved city. Others believe they're stuck here because, let's be honest, they couldn't find parking in the afterlife either. Whatever the case, there's no denying that this city has some serious spiritual traffic jams. Walk through uptown at night and you might notice the faint smell of old tobacco, hear whispers echo through historic buildings, or catch a glimpse of something or someone in a window that shouldn't be there. Locals like to joke that Charlotte's ghosts are polite, southern ones. They won't haunt you without at least saying, "Bless your heart" first. But don't be fooled. Some of these spirits have stories darker than a Carolina thunderstorm. Then there's the way Charlotte mixes the old with the new. You've got shiny high-rises sitting next to buildings from the 1800s, coffee shops and old cotton mills, and breweries built over graveyards. Because of course they are. It's that contrast that gives the Queen City its charm, and maybe, just maybe, gives its ghosts a reason to hang around. After all, if you were haunting a city, wouldn't you want one with craft beer and great barbecue too? Even the sports teams have their share of eerie moments. The Carolina Panthers have had their ups and downs, and depending on the season, fans will swear something supernatural is haunting that stadium. Some blame bad coaching, others blame a curse, and a few say an old mill worker from the stadium site still roams the tunnels muttering about missed field goals. Hey, anything's possible in Charlotte. But behind the laughter and sweet tea, Charlotte's haunted side runs deep. There are abandoned hospitals, eerie theaters, ghostly mansions, and roads where headlights vanish into thin air. Each one has a story, a tragic love, a mysterious death, a restless soul that makes you think twice before walking alone after dark. And tonight, we're about to explore the creepiest of them all. So grab your flashlight, pour yourself a cheer wine, and buckle up, because we're taking a ghost tour through the Queen City's spookiest corners. From spirits that whisper in historic hotels to shadowy figures that patrol old battlefields, these are the most haunted places in Charlotte, North Carolina, where the history is rich and the ghosts are restless. Once upon a time, around the early 1800s, an ambitious Irish immigrant named James Latta decided that life in Charlotte, North Carolina, needed a little more flair. So naturally, he built himself a plantation. He called it Latta Plantation, though today it goes by the more polite name Latta Place. Back then, James was a successful merchant who figured the next logical step after selling things was to own a few thousand acres, grow some cotton, and wear a hat big enough to need its own postal code. He built a fine federal-style home with brick chimneys, symmetrical windows, and enough land to make any 19th-century gentleman puff his chest with pride. The plantation thrived for a while, complete with sprawling fields, gardens, livestock pens, and of course enslaved workers who made the place run. As the years rolled on, the Latta family eventually moved on, selling the property to the Sample family in the mid-1800s. Over time, the plantation went from bustling estate to quiet countryside relic. Eventually, it became a museum and part of a nature preserve, a spot where school kids came to learn about life in the 1800s, and sometimes to hear about the dead who never really left. Ah yes, the ghosts. Because what good is a centuries-old plantation without a few spirits roaming the halls, right? Visitors and staff have reported all sorts of eerie happenings. Footsteps in empty rooms, the sound of furniture dragging across floors, and disembodied whispers floating through the parlor. Some even claim to see full-bodied apparitions gliding down the hallways like they still have chores to do. If you've ever worked retail, you can sympathize. Sometimes, even the afterlife won't let you clock out. The attic is the main stage for the paranormal circus. People have heard laughter, small footsteps, and what sounds like children running back and forth. Considering the attic's half-finished floors, you'd think the ghosts would be a little more cautious, but no. They're up there having a full-blown playdate. Tour guides often joke that the spirits must have found some 19th century toys and decided not to share. A few have even claimed to see faint shadows darting from one corner to another, as if playing hide-and-seek with the living. Then there's the legendary walking cane incident. During a guided tour, a staff member was holding an old cane said to belong to one of the Lattas. As he was talking, the cane slipped from his hand, but instead of falling, it stood upright and began to move across the floor on its own. Visitors froze. The staffer swore he wasn't pulling a prank. Somewhere in the afterlife, James Latta must have thought, well, if no one else is going to lead the tour, I'll do it myself. Another strange event involved a mirror in the parlor. Late one evening, after the last visitors had gone, a staff member heard a loud crash. He rushed in to find a large mirror lying face down in the center of the room. But here's the weird part. Not a single crack. It was as if someone had gently laid it down, or maybe a ghost decided it didn't like what it saw that day. Let's be honest, we've all been there. As for why Latta Place is haunted, there are a few theories. Some say it's the lingering energy of those who lived and died there, both the family and the enslaved people who endured unimaginable hardship on that land. Others believe the Lattas simply never wanted to leave their beloved home. The energy in the house isn't said to be evil, more like a strange mix of nostalgia and stubbornness. Like a ghostly, I was here first kind of vibe. Today, Latta Place stands as a museum and a reminder of the past, both its beauty and its darkness. During the day, you can take a peaceful tour and enjoy the scenery, but when the sun sets, things start to feel different. The wind seems to whisper a little louder. The floorboards creak a little more intentionally, and you might just hear laughter drifting from the attic. Whether it's history echoing through time or a few bored spirits keeping themselves entertained, Latta Place has earned its reputation as one of Charlotte's most haunted spots, where the living and the dead seem to share the lease. Picture this. You step through the gates at 700 West 6th Street, and the skyline of uptown Charlotte peeks over rows of Victorian monuments, as if the city itself is keeping watch. That's Elmwood Cemetery. 72 acres of marble angels, ornate obelisks, and stories stacked deeper than a southern layer cake. Established in 1853 when Charlotte's original burial ground ran out of room, Elmwood became the final resting place for the city's most notable residents, and, according to locals, a few who never quite left. Back in its early days, Elmwood wasn't just a cemetery, it was a statement. The city wanted something grand and proper, a place that reflected the New South image Charlotte was trying to build. Of course, like much of the South back then, it wasn't exactly equal. There was a fence dividing White Elmwood from the black section next door, Pinewood Cemetery. That fence stood for more than a century, until the late 1960s when it was finally taken down. Some say that after the fence was removed, the spirits who had been kept apart finally began to mingle, and they haven't stopped since. Elmwood holds some serious Charlotte royalty. You'll find the graves of retail tycoon William Henry Belk, movie star Randolph Scott, and pioneering Dr. Annie Alexander, one of the first female physicians in the South. It's basically a historic neighborhood where everyone's address just happens to be 6 feet under. Locals joke that if you want to learn about Charlotte's past, skip the library. Just take a walk through Elmwood and read the tombstones. But let's get to the good part, the hauntings. With over 70,000 people buried there, Elmwood's got enough ghostly energy to power half of Uptown. Visitors have reported shadowy figures gliding between headstones, voices whispering on windless nights, and strange orbs of light that float just above the ground. Some people say they've seen an elderly woman in Victorian clothes wandering the paths, clutching a parasol, vanishing when you blink. Others swear they've heard faint music playing from nowhere. Maybe one of those well-to-do residents is still hosting an afterlife soiree. One of the most talked-about spirits is that of firefighter Pruitt L. Black, who died in 1934 after a tragic fall at the fire station. He's buried at Elmwood, but many claim he never stopped checking on his old beat. There are tales of cigar smoke drifting through the cemetery when no one's around, and the sound of heavy boots pacing near his grave. Maybe he's just making sure nobody's breaking curfew or sneaking in after dark. If you're brave or just curious, Elmwood even offers haunted history tours. They don't shy away from the strange and tragic tales. The circus worker trampled by an elephant, the unidentified stranger found in a boxcar, or the woman whose cries echo after midnight. These stories are told with a mix of reverence and southern flair, which is code for prepare to laugh nervously while clutching your flashlight. Of course, not all Elmwood encounters are terrifying. Some people visit and say the place feels oddly peaceful, like the ghosts are more interested in people watching than haunting. With its canopy of oaks and sweeping views of the city, it's easy to see why even the dearly departed might choose to stick around. A few locals even treat it like a park, walking dogs or eating lunch among the monuments. Though personally, I'd skip the picnic if the breeze starts whispering your name. In the end, Elmwood Cemetery isn't just haunted. It's alive with history and a bit of Charlotte charm. It's the kind of place where the past doesn't rest quietly, but tells stories through the rustle of leaves and the creak of old branches. So if you ever find yourself there after dark and hear someone politely clear their throat behind you, don't panic. Just smile, say evening, and remember, you're standing in one of Charlotte's liveliest resting places. The First Presbyterian Church of Charlotte, a place where hymns meet hauntings, prayers mix with paranormal activity, and the holy light occasionally flickers because Ambrose the Ghost decided to check the wiring again. Built in 1821, this stately church in uptown Charlotte looks every bit the image of Southern grace and Gothic charm. Red brick, tall steeples, and stained glass. It's the kind of building you'd expect to host weddings, baptisms, and the occasional ghost sighting. Ambrose, the church's most famous spirit, isn't your average ghost story. He was an African-American sexton who kept the church running during the Civil War, lighting lamps, ringing bells, and keeping the pews polished. When he passed, the congregation thought he'd earned some heavenly rest. Instead, Ambrose apparently punched the ghostly time clock and just kept working. You know you're dedicated when you don't even let death interfere with your shift. For years, people have reported Ambrose's after-hours activities. Chandeliers mysteriously jingle when no one's around. Light bulbs suddenly explode, as if Ambrose got bored and wanted to start a mini fireworks show. And that infamous stairwell? Let's just say it's Charlotte's version of a paranormal speed bump. Those who've walked it at night swear the temperature drops 10 degrees, and that's not from the air conditioning. Ambrose must like to keep it chilly while he supervises. In 2019, curiosity about Ambrose reached new heights, or perhaps new depths, as Pastor Penn Peary himself led brave souls on a Halloween ghost tour. While most pastors preach about spirits of a different kind, Peary leaned into the ghostly gossip, guiding guests through the church's shadowy corners. No one reported seeing Ambrose that night, but the lights flickered enough to make people reconsider their skepticism and possibly their bladder control. Adding to the mystery is a secret tunnel beneath the church. Nobody knows exactly where it leads or why it was built, but that hasn't stopped locals from speculating. Some say it connects to nearby buildings. Others claim it was used during the Civil War. And a few swear Ambrose uses it as his own personal ghostly expressway. If ghosts could charge tolls, Ambrose would be the wealthiest spirit in North Carolina. The churchyard is where Ambrose made his first known encore appearance back in 1876. Witnesses said they saw a shadowy figure pacing back and forth among the gravestones, calm, collected, and perhaps a little annoyed that nobody had replaced the oil in the lamps. The story made it into the Daily Charlotte Observer, and from that moment on, Ambrose became local legend, Charlotte's most loyal and undead church employee. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, there's something endearing about Ambrose's story. He's not a malevolent spirit or a vengeful wraith, just a hard-working soul who didn't get the memo about retirement. Maybe he's keeping an eye on things, making sure the choir hits the right notes and the candles stay lit. Or maybe he's just waiting for someone to finally thank him for centuries of unpaid overtime. Today, the First Presbyterian Church of Charlotte stands as both a beacon of faith and a hotspot for ghost hunters. Between the mysterious tunnel, the haunted stairwell, and Ambrose's friendly tinkering, it's got all the makings of a Southern Gothic sitcom. So if you ever find yourself there late at night and a light flickers above your head, don't panic. Just smile and say, "Thanks, Ambrose. Keep up the good work." The story of Latta Arcade, better known to many as The Alley, is one of Charlotte's coolest blends of history, mystery, and mild mischief. It all began in 1914 when Edward Dilworth Latta decided the city needed something classy, something modern, something that would make shoppers feel like they'd stepped straight into a European dream. By 1915, his vision stood proudly between South Tryon and Church Street, a bright, glass-covered arcade that became the perfect place to escape the weather, grab a bite, and gossip without the risk of melting in the Carolina heat. Back in the day, the glass roof wasn't just there to look pretty. It was actually designed so merchants could grade cotton by natural light, because apparently that was a very serious business in 1915. The place quickly filled up with stores, offices, and the hum of everyday life. The sound of footsteps, chatter, and the occasional typewriter clack filled the air. It was Charlotte's version of a downtown mall, just with a little more charm and a lot fewer mall cops. Of course, time did what time does best. It wore things down. By the mid-1900s, the once grand arcade had lost some of its shine. But Charlotte's got a thing for revivals, and soon enough, the building got a facelift. Renovations over the decades breathed new life into the structure, keeping its character while updating it for the modern age. These days, It's better known as the Alley, a hub of restaurants, shops, and late-night hangouts tucked in the heart of uptown Charlotte. But let's be honest, what's a century-old building without a few ghosts? That's where the fun begins. Workers and visitors have long whispered about eerie happenings after hours. Footsteps echo when no one's around. Lights flicker in empty corridors. Security cameras pick up movements in the shadows, only for the footage to show nothing. One poor janitor swore he heard someone humming an old church tune near the stairwell. When he turned around, no one. Just a mop bucket and some serious goosebumps. Locals claim the hauntings come from the building's early days. Some believe the spirit of a former worker still roams the halls, forever checking on his beloved arcade. Others think it's tied to the tunnels rumored to run beneath the building, connecting it to nearby businesses. Back during Prohibition, Charlotte was no stranger to secret speakeasies, and the alley might have been the perfect hiding spot. You can almost picture some poor bootlegger dropping a case of gin and cursing that the ghost of Mr. Latta himself was watching. Ghost tours sometimes swing by the arcade, and paranormal investigators have done their share of EMF readings there. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, there's something about the place that feels watched. The way the air changes when the last shop closes, or how the upper walkways seem to creak like they're keeping secrets. It's enough to make even the toughest skeptic glance over their shoulder. Maybe it's the energy of so many people passing through over the decades. Workers, shoppers, business folks, and dreamers all leaving their mark. Or maybe, just maybe, it's a few friendly spirits who never got the memo that the workday ended 100 years ago. Either way, the alley hums with history, and not all of it is visible. So if you ever find yourself there late at night, grabbing a quick bite or strolling through those glowing glass corridors, take a listen. You might just hear the soft echo of footsteps behind you. Don't panic. It's probably just one of Charlotte's oldest regulars making their evening rounds, keeping the alley's lights and stories alive. The Dunhill Hotel in Uptown, Charlotte looks like a charming old gentleman in a pressed suit, polite, sophisticated, and probably full of secrets. Sitting proudly at Tryon and 6th Street, this historic building dates back to 1929, when it first opened as the Mayfair Manor. It was designed by Louis Asbury Sr., who clearly had no idea the Great Depression was about to show up and ruin everyone's plans. The Mayfair was meant to be luxurious, elegant apartments for visitors and locals who wanted a little class with their southern hospitality. Of course, timing is everything. The grand opening was in November 1929, about a month after the stock market crashed. Let's just say business wasn't booming. Still, the Mayfair survived and became home to a mix of permanent residents, travelers, and the occasional local socialite. It had that 1920s charm, marble floors, brass fixtures, and an elevator that seemed to have a mind of its own, and maybe still does. By the 1970s, the once glamorous Mayfair had lost its sparkle. The paint was peeling, the rooms were tired, and ghosts, if they existed, had the place to themselves. The building finally closed in 1981, sitting quietly for a few years while pigeons and spirits argued over who owned it. Then, in the late 1980s, it got a major makeover. After a $6 million renovation, it reopened in 1988 as the Dunhill Hotel, refined, restored, and ready for guests who didn't mind sharing the place with things that go bump in the night. Now, let's talk about the ghosts. The Dunhill is famous for its resident spirit named Dusty. Nobody really knows who Dusty was, but he's got personality. Guests report strange knocking on their doors, blinds moving on their own, and random cold spots. Dusty seems like the kind of ghost who would hide your remote just to see your reaction. He's not scary, just mischievous, like that one uncle who shows up to family reunions with a whoopee cushion. Then there's the legend of the elevator shaft. During renovations, workers allegedly discovered a skeleton inside. Yep, nothing adds to the ambiance of a boutique hotel quite like a mysterious skeleton in the elevator. Some say it belonged to a construction worker who fell during the original build. Others whisper it was someone who never checked out. Either way, the elevator has been acting weird ever since, sometimes opening to an empty hallway, sometimes taking guests to floors they didn't choose. If you ride alone, maybe don't look behind you. Guests also claim to see a woman with long black hair drifting through the halls and hear laughter echoing late at night. Lights flicker, electronics turn on by themselves, and some rooms, especially the upper ones, seem to have a chill that isn't just from the air conditioning. Locals even say room 906 is especially haunted, but management, understandably, prefers not to advertise that on Expedia. So why is the Dunhill haunted? Well, it's been through it all, decades of triumphs and tragedies, heartbreaks and celebrations. People came and went, but some clearly never left. The hotel's old walls have soaked up every emotion, and the result is a kind of living memory that refuses to fade. It's part of the charm, really, ghosts included. If you ever stay there, enjoy the charm, the food at the Asbury, and the vintage vibe. But if the elevator hesitates a little too long, or you hear a faint knock in the middle of the night, don't panic. It's probably just Dusty saying hello. And honestly, in a city full of new skyscrapers, a little old-fashioned haunting is kind of refreshing. And that, my friends, wraps up our spooky stroll through Charlotte's most haunted spots. From ghostly churchgoers who never left the pews to old hotels where the guests check in but apparently never check out, it's safe to say the Queen City's got more spirits than a Carolina Panthers tailgate. But let's be real, Charlotte's got way too many haunted stories to cram into just one video. I mean, I haven't even gotten to the spots locals refuse to drive past after midnight. So you already know what that means. Part 2 is officially on the way. You might want to leave the lights on for that one. If you enjoyed tonight's ghost tour, make sure to hit that like button before something from Elmwood Cemetery hits it for you. Drop a comment and tell me which haunted place you'd dare or absolutely refuse to visit in real life. And if you've got your own Charlotte ghost story, spill it in the comments. I might feature it in the next episode. All right, brave souls, that's all for now. I'll see you in part 2, where the ghosts get louder, the stories get wilder, and I'll probably regret going inside half these places. Until then, stay curious, stay creepy, and don't forget, Charlotte might look calm in the daylight, but when the sun goes down, it gets real haunted, real fast.